Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is the Commando Cast, a video cast about all things Star Wars Destiny. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando.
In a set chock full of awesome stuff, Iden Versio Imperial Ace is one of the cooler cards to come out of ARH4 Unlikely Heroes. Not only does her card design embrace theme at the highest level, but the deck building options that she opens up are perhaps unmatched of any card we've seen in Destiny. Mixing hero and villain cards together? Sure, we've seen that in the past. But Iden allows an essentially unrestricted mixing of the two pools to the level we've never before seen. With no restrictions on count, color, or type, putting Iden into a hero lineup allows for completely open combinations limited only by your team comp, only limited by the fact that by requiring a red leader, running Rainbow isn't really possible. And while this blows open deck building possibility and brings endless enjoyment in theory crafting, one has to ask the question, will Iden end up being a design limiting card going forward? Hey there, Star Wars Destiny folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast, and happy Destiny Friday. I hope everything's been going well for you this week, that you're enjoying still kind of the early meta stuff, and having a lot of fun with it. So today talking Iden Versio Imperial Ace. So coming out of ARH4, she's really fun, right? We've seen a ton of designs with her. She works really well, kind of like in that 3-wide piloting. We've seen Mawlock kind of taking that. A couple weeks ago, we saw him taking that, but it's been making its rounds, right? And by that specifically, I mean her paired with Wedge, generally with Plo, and then using Ace pilots, right? To kind of 3-wide that, and then you've got access to everything, and that's very good. She also has the Wedge AR thing, and anyway, you guys get it. Lots of, that's kind of the point with her, is there's just a bajillion and one options on how you want to play it. You can bring the AAT to the table and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So, Iden, breaking her down, right? As long as you include her on, if you want to play her with hero, you have to include her with a red hero leader. And that's why Wedge is really kind of the go-to, right? I mean, Wedge in himself is, arguably a 10-13 hero, right? But he's a leader, and they're pilots, and they work together. I mean, it just makes sense, right? But as compared to other cards we've seen in the past, right? Thinking like an Infus Nest or something like that, where you can bring off faction cards to some limit, right? So the Infus Nest, there's no identity limit to them, but there's a quantity limit. And Raylo, we've seen mixing in the past, but there was a color limitation there, right? And Iden Versio doesn't have any of that. Really, her only limitation towards the faction mixing is the fact that she has to be paired with the hero leader, which I think is going to make it very difficult to rein in going forward, right? I mean, now anytime a red leader gets made, has to be tested not against just Iden, or not with just Iden, but has to be tested against basically every card in the villain pool. And even if we don't get any more characters going forward, which obviously we're going to, you have to look at Iden. Basically, every villain card now has to be considered as part of the hero pool as well. And that's a lot of theory crafting. That's a lot of deck building. That's a lot of testing that needs to be done. So I kind of wanted to put, obviously the theory tonight is will she be too design limiting? I mean, we don't know, right? But ultimately, asking that question I think is reasonable. Kind of in recent Destiny history, the term design limiting, in terms of why we've decided to get rid of a card or change it or whatever, design limiting, kind of the poster child for that has really been Mean Streets, right? Mean Streets was considered to largely be design limiting because essentially as long as you had yellow and you had Scoundrel, and then you add on a piloting with that, right? But As long as you had that, any 3-cost event had to be really evaluated in a vacuum with mean streets, right? I mean, that's and not really even in a vacuum, right? Actually, not in a vacuum. I guess that's kind of the point, right? But in any 3-cost design or any 3-cost event, I mean, not even just yellow ones, right? But primarily your yellow 3-cost yellow, your 3-cost yellows, you really had to be careful on what you could do because it wasn't a 3-cost. Right, so that's why, like I said, Mean Streets was kind of the poster child over time for what design limiting really did and how it was really hurting not just the ability of designing of the events, but also the characters within that, right? I mean, Dash, it's, the argument was definitely there that Dash, with the existence of Mean Streets, kind of brought it so, should Dash have been created with Mean Streets in existence? Right, and stuff like that. So if the existence of Mean Streets mean that you can't continue to develop characters even outside, right? Because a character uses you guys get it. You guys get it, right? It was really limiting what they could do on an upper ceiling from events, from yellow characters, from yellow scoundrels, I guess, and so on. And that's part of the question I'm asking today is, will Iden really start to limit what can be done? Specifically, I guess, more so on the villain side, right? Which is kind of ironic when you really think about how it. But that's how this stuff kind of flushes it out, right? Is Iden will have to. You'll have to really consider the strength of the villain stuff that you're bringing, because a lot of the times when you're designing a card, you're like, all right, we can make this card a little OP because or a little above, maybe not OP, but we can design a card that's a little bit above curve because it's held in place by these restrictions, right? But then when you get a crossover card like Iden that facilitates that card to be used essentially outside of its restrictions, you guys can see how the ball starts to get rolling, and things can go out of control pretty quick, right? So Iden, I think, Iden herself as a character, if you look at her, she's good. But she's not like a meta-defining card by anything, right? I mean, she essentially has the same stats she's had, not essentially, she has the same stats she's had since Across the Galaxy. I mean, she's exactly on that. She adds leader, pilot, trooper. No, she's exactly the same, right? And then, her ability that while her die is in the pool, and I do say die because you're mostly running your single, right? Where her die is in the pool, all of your piloted vehicle dice go up by 1, which is also really, really, really phenomenal. So her as a character, she's good, but it's her existence alone that really starts to potentially warp where design can go. So that's really just it with the thoughts there. Is I'm wondering if she is going to be potentially design limiting, and then if the decision is made that that's the case, then I'm sorry about the camera today, guys. I don't know what the heck's going on. I'm just gonna keep plowing through, and we're just gonna deal with it, right? So, anyway, so if the decision is made that Iden is to design limiting and how she exists today, what could we really do? What could we really do to change it, right? I mean, I think one of the easier things to do would be errata her that she could only bring red cards, right? And then you don't need to necessarily worry about yellow villain and blue villain or something like that. I mean, I think that's probably the easiest way to go. You do still, in theory, then still have some design limitations, but it doesn't limit the entire villain card pool. So probably stuff like that's more the right approach, right? And do it incrementally. And, instead of just points balancing her out or something like that, I think probably that's the way to go. But, I mean, I don't think we're there yet. I know we're not there yet. But she's one of those cards that I look at and I'm like, man, I'm really worried about the power level of this. I mean, her piloted die thing is pretty strong. But at least you can control her die, right? So I don't think that's a problem, but her ability to just bring anything you want effectively to the table is pretty strong. So anyway, that'll do it for me today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's kind of short today, but just kind of sharing my thoughts, thinking about Iden and where it can go in the future. And she's one of those cards that really pops to the top as being a long-term viable option for a lot of things we have going, and we keep seeing more and more and more pilots, and piloting just seems to get stronger and stronger, which isn't a bad thing. But when you have someone like Iden who can bring a lot of power, a lot of decent to the table, and open up design, things can start stacking up pretty quick. So anyway, folks, let me know what you're thinking. Yeah, thanks very much for joining me today. Happy Destiny Friday, and go Commando.